comes to church who's head of a family, 93% of the time the family comes with.
Right.
So that tells us essentially, and particularly in your ages, that tells us who we're after. If we get brothers, men in church and get them saved, then of course their whole family is coming. Now the problem we're having now is when we take a look at the demographics, look at the situation that we have before us, we will find that ministry is not significant, it's not viable, there's no vitality in it if it is not dealing with the issues of our boys dying in the streets.
That's right.
And those who don't die in the street end up incarcerated. So we're dealing with mass incarceration and we're dealing with fellas dying in the street, as was indicated a while ago. It's either you end up in prison or you're going to die in the street. One of the things that we have to deal with then is the issue of people dying within the proximity of our churches while we're closed in a sanctuary, having church, shouting and jumping.
Right.
I have buried, I just remember just last week, and the funeral is on Tuesday, my head of security for both of my companies. One is the churches, and then I have a security company, period. And my head of security who jumps back and forth, his son, 22-year-old, was over at a party, little kids at a party, and he was there sort of giving some governance and sort of protecting the kids. And the neighbors got into an altercation. And next thing, they started shooting like it was a Wild Wild West. Bullet hit him in the chest and in the stomach. And he was dead instantly because he ran outside to tell the kids, get in here so you can, you know, be protected. And he now is gone. Now here's what I'll hear at a funeral. I'll hear at a funeral when I get there and I get just extremely angry.
I can believe
when I
it.
get to a funeral, because here's what I'm going to hear. That the Lord plucked a flower for his rose garden.
Lord Jesus.
And it is our way of modifying how we feel. But at the same time, it projects a theology that is totally unreal. And that is that God is sitting in heaven, looking down here and at precious human life that he gave. And he gave 70 years of promise, at least. And you're looking at human life, and to make ourselves feel better because of our lack of pertinacious responses. That's sorry. I just
Dictionary.com.
And enthusiasm and the drive to make a change in our communities, we end up hiding in a sanctuary.
Yes.
And it's interesting that Jesus, and for the last 25 years, we promulgated and expostulated faith at the expense of love.
Yes.
And we became so conscious of material things as a part of our Christian journey. And we based it upon who we are. We're kids. We ought to have Bentleys. We're kids. We ought to have private jets. We're kids. But Jesus was never at risk because of who he was and is. He was always at risk because of what he did and what he does. See, the issue is not only is he a king, but he's a servant king. And I think proclamation, which is my forte, is to become your conscience and to ask the question: why is there free breakfast here this morning, and this place isn't jammed, full of people who are ministers? Because there's a difference between ministry and having church.
That's right.
Yes.
And what we have done, even to build our young people groups, what we do is just have more church.
Yes.
I tell my auxiliaries, I mean, please, for God's sake, you cannot duplicate what I do. You can have all the church you want to. You can't put 5,000 people in a room 3 times in a day. You can't do it. So having somebody else come to preach, having somebody else around, you're missing the point. The reason I have you in an auxiliary for young people is because I want you to deal with things that are idiosyncratic.
That's right.
God. Yes, sir.
Their lives. I want you to talk about things I can't talk about in a plenary session. The reason I have women organizations and men organizations, and I put a choir of 300 men together Mother's Day. I guarantee I'll have 300 men singing. Because when I go to the men's meeting, the first thing I open is, let's talk about baby mama drama.
Yeah.
You see, something I can't talk about in the open. Let's talk about our sexuality. Let's talk about this polygamous disposition that we have.
Right.
Why can't we be true to one woman? So I'm talking about issues. Let's talk about our brothers being shot down in the street. You know, let's talk about how you can get out of this situation of being recycled into prison. And these are the issues that have become pertinent while we're singing. I was arguing last night, a couple of Baptist fellows, Kevin Adams and Maurice Watson, fellows prominent guys, was arguing last night. How could Judas be with Jesus for 3 years and sell him for 30 pieces of silver? Right. How can you be around that kind of power and not know what you have? And Judas is an offshoot of Judah. Yep. Which means praise. And I'm asking that maybe we need to take our hands down and get them dirty in our community. Yes.
Help us. Help us.
Because there's a difference between having church and ministry.
Yes, sir.
And trying to figure out how we can be in church and for 10, 15 years and still have only 20 and 30 members.
Wow.
Because the only way to get a church to grow is not having more church, but it's to start ministry. Which means that we need to get down on the ground, get our hands dirty, put some risk in our Christianity. Because a riskless Christianity is doing absolutely nothing. And while we're shouting the prostitutes down the street, there's more alcohol places in our communities than anywhere else. The gunshots are going over our heads now in the church. And yes, we made a sanctuary a lot of it, and we're pretty safe trying to get rich. But at the end of the day, if we don't get to work in this problem, I did a poem some years ago with Tavis, How to Make Black America Better. And I did a piece that I'm working on that I told you, and it's kind of couldn't have so much fun than to give inner city people a gun. So they don't have to kill us. We're doing genocide ourselves. Joe and the others will give you statistics, but you ask the black women, the last thing I want to be is trying to marry them. Just figure it out. Figure with the Bible, man. Those who are in jail are being shot down at 70% of women. Somewhere around 70% of women. And they're attacking our church and not the I'm saying that this is the power and everybody can do it and help us to understand. Thank you. Why don't we go to Pastor D-Son? You are a son of this great church, and you moved into the pastor. Can you maybe speak a little bit from your own experience of how you've been able to actually take the ministry and these issues, make them at the core of how you've been reimagining ministry and church, and certainly you've got a chance to meet Michelle Alexander and the regional program. Just how all of that has impacted you in the last year or so.
After listening to what Bishop Jones was saying, I was thinking, I always go back to when I was younger, when I didn't have no idea that I was going to be a pastor or a minister. But there was 2 occasions within our churches where there was 2 cases of gun violence. There was one when we was young, and there was a young guy by the name of Dion Morris who was a member of the Pettis Church. And he was a musician in the church, but he was also a member of the Rolling 60 Crips. And on an accident, it was an accident, definitely he shot himself in the head, killed himself. We were probably like about 18, 17. Also, in a few years, I don't know before or after, when Bishop Jones first came out to Los Angeles and took over the City of Refuge, our head deacon at our church, his daughter was dating a gangster of blood, and on the corner of Crenshaw and Florence at a mobile gas station, while the boyfriend